Hey, welcome to Self Publishing Made Easy. This is a series of videos about self publishing that'll walk you through my process, walk you through the research that I've done over the last 3 years so that you don't have to do it. So, today we are going to start with episode 1, which is writing. The tools you use to write, your process for writing, and how you get started writing that first book. I don't know how many people I talk to when I tell them I am a self published author. The first thing they tell me is, "Ooh, I have an idea for a book," or "Oh, I've written a book, I just don't know what to do with it," or "I have a manuscript," or "I started writing." So many people out there, maybe just like you, have started writing or want to be a writer and just don't know what to do, and it's overwhelming, all of the different information. And I can confirm that it is overwhelming. I have spent about 3 years figuring out all of the different tools and methods and processes to make self publishing much easier. So, hopefully, this series will help you and walk you through. And instead of asking questions and hoping people on Facebook or wherever else you are answer your questions, you can come here to find all of your answers. And if you have questions as we go, please leave them in the comments. I will do my best to respond to every other question. And please, before we get started, subscribe so you know when the next episode comes out. Hit the notification bell. And all right, let's get going. So, first of all, what is your method for writing? What tools do you use for writing? Let's get into it. All right, so let's start by going over the software that I choose to use for writing. There are a lot of options out there for Microsoft Word. You can go, there are lots of note apps on your phone if you like writing on your phone. You can do text to voice. There are so many tools out there to write. So, what are you looking for in writing? One, you need something that's powerful enough to give you all of the tools that you need in order to create a well formatted product that is that easily uploads into your formatting software, your book formatting software, and something you're familiar with. And one of the biggest reasons for me, other than I'm very familiar with Google Docs, is the collaboration and working with my editor after I'm done writing. And I will talk about that a little bit more today, but really when we get into our editing or editor lesson. So, here are a couple tips while you're writing and a couple of things. I'm going to talk about Google Docs here because it's what I use and it's free. You can create a free account. You get free storage up to a certain level, which is plenty of storage for documents, which is what this is. And it is a very powerful software. It pretty much has everything you need to write your book in it. Right here and now, you can use multiple devices because it's saved in the cloud, and that's another good consideration is how you don't want to lose your work. So, do you trust Google Docs? If you don't trust it fully, if you don't trust their cloud fully, you can always download after every chapter or every few chapters, whenever you want. You can download it as a Microsoft Word document. You can also and then upload it later if for some reason your cloud file is lost. You can also sync your drive to your desktop so that you have a local copy of every file on your desktop that is in your cloud drive. So many options and so easy to use. So that's why I use it. A couple of just little pointers that I've found from using this software. Make it easier to import into my formatting software is, first of all, headers. So you can't just write chapter 2 in a bigger font and carry on. You actually have to format it as a header so that the software later will recognize it as a header. So chapter 2, you can see here, is formatted as a heading number 1. And format, paragraph styles, heading number 1, apply. Okay? Now, all of my chapters in this book have a subheading because I have a location and a year. So in my subheading, it's heading number 2. So it knows that it's a bit smaller and automatically formats it as such, but it still knows it's not part of the text of the chapter, that it's actually part of the heading. And then my year here, You can put it as a heading number 3. You can include it as 2, just depending on what you want, how you want it to show up in the book. Right here I have it as normal text, but I could easily go in and make it, say, heading number 3. Okay, so that's one thing. Second, when I write, I find it easier not to indent paragraphs because your formatting software can do that for you. So it's easier just to hit return and keep going. So I write single spaced and then I hit return in between paragraphs. Works really well for ease of writing, ease of editing. The only issue that comes up that I'll show you when I get into the editing software is that my formatting software sees an extra space, and I have to go through and delete those spaces. It takes a minute, 60 seconds, so it's not a big deal to me, but it might be to you. It's just a consideration. A great thing about doing headers is you also then get it on the side here that you can jump to chapters because it shows the headings. One thing I do have found and can be an issue in formatting software, especially the free options. One of the free options I'll get into is when you have parts, part 1 and 2, even though I have this at a heading. So it's possible if I made my parts heading number 1 and my chapters heading number 2, you can play with that. But just a consideration, one of the free options for formatting didn't recognize the part as a separate heading, and so I had to play around with that. So that's why I use Google Docs just for ease of use. And then my editor, I can just share this document with my editor. He can go in as making suggestions, and I can see it real time. So as he's going in, adding commas, adding semicolons, fixing a phrase, asking me questions, saying, hey, I need a little more explanation here, or this doesn't quite make sense, I can go in and fix it real time. So we're collaborating there instead of me sending him a file, him sending me back a file, and back and forth and back and forth. It's all live. So by the time he's done editing my book, I'm done fixing it because I've been fixing all of those suggestions live as we go. He could also just go in and edit and make those changes himself, but I like seeing the changes that he made so that I can improve my writing in the future. So I see it. So basically he'll suggest a comma. I'll see that there. I can go in and accept his suggestion or reject it. He knows what he's doing, so I normally accept it. But anyway, we'll talk about that more with the editing, but that's why I use Google Docs. Now, there are a lot of other programs out there. You can use Microsoft Word. You can use Microsoft 360 so that you have this online collaboration cloud services. You can use Scrivener. You can use Atticus, and I'm going to show you Atticus here in a second. But there are so many things you have to pay for when you're publishing. Why would you start by paying for writing software as well? You want to just get writing. So Google Docs is a great place to start. If you already have another program, if you already have Word or something else on your phone, go ahead and use it. Use what is comfortable to you. Just make sure that you are formatting it to make it easier down the road. And I've had to play around with that. And the big thing that I've learned is that heading tip, heading secret. So my choice is Google Docs. You can use your own choice. But the big thing is you just need a program where you can start writing. Okay, a program that I use that has a writing feature in it. I don't use it for the writing feature because I like Google Docs so much and I like the collaboration with my editor. And Atticus doesn't provide that real-time collaboration. But Atticus is a great way to write a book. So let's open my latest book here in Atticus. Very powerful word processor. And it's also a book formatter. So you can do everything all in one place except for the editing in Atticus. If they could add some sort of sharing feature other than having to share your username and password, then it would be not perfect, but it would be great. So I write in Google Docs and then I upload the finished product into Atticus. So you can write in Atticus. So you can add new chapters and then you write per chapter. So every chapter is separated. You can add photos in your chapter, but I'll get into the formatting stuff later. This is more about writing. You can save. If you have pages that you put in all your books, you can just save them and import them here into every book. So an about the author page, or if you have a letter to your readers, you can just import them. You can add title pages. They have preset layouts. You add a new chapter here. You can add images. So a lot of stuff you can do. And then it has all of the other text word processing tools: bold, italics, underline, um, alignment, paragraphs, page breaks. You can add links, you can add photos, you can add call out boxes, you can actually add text bubbles if you have text messages in your book. All that stuff I just add later. You can also choose your font and the size and the line height and your paragraph settings. So lots of stuff you can do right here in Atticus as you write. So you can almost kind of format it as you go, which is pretty cool. I like Atticus because it's a one-time fee. You buy it once and it's free updates for life. I love software like that. It's not super expensive when you take that into consideration, where other software might seem cheaper because it's a subscription, but over time, you're going to pay a lot more. So Atticus is a great tool for writing. And now the importing, I remember I talked about the spacing importing issue with Google Docs. So when I download to a Word document from Google Docs and then I upload that Word document to here, I basically create a chapter, copy and paste my chapter from the document, and then paste it into here. You can import it and it will go through and find all your chapters for you, and it's pretty powerful that way. It's made a couple mistakes on that, so I just do it one chapter at a time. And part of the reason I do that is because what happens, because I hit the return button between paragraphs when I'm writing, is basically does this. So the entire doc chapter looks like this. So all I have to go through is delete that extra space all the way through the chapter. It takes like 30 seconds. Yeah, it's a little annoying, but it's not a big deal. So I write in Google Docs and then import into Atticus, but you can write right here in Atticus. There are other programs out there that do the same thing. I like this one because it is browser-based, cloud-based, and the support is on top of it. They have a great support team. They're adding new features all of the time. It's a very active product, so I like it. But I think the biggest consideration when you're first starting out, unless you just have a ton of money, is save that money for the things where you need to pay somebody, like editing and design, formatting. Know your strengths. Are you an author, just an author, or just the writer, or can you do it all? Save a little money by going free. Google Docs is a great option for that. So that's writing, the tools that I use to write. You may find other ones that you like, but those are the ones that I use, and that's my experience in writing. All right, we're back. We talked about the writing program software that I use and why I use them. I want to talk a little bit about your writing style and feedback. There are a lot of writing groups out there, but you need to decide, do you work best getting feedback from others? Do you work best when you're collaborating, when you're in a writing group and you're reading and basically getting critique from other people? Is that helpful to you or not? You don't have to do it. And so that's kind of my point. People say this is what you should do. If that's not helpful to you, don't do it. There are tons of writing groups on social media. There are a ton of groups on Facebook that people ask a lot of questions. And it's funny because someone will ask a question and you'll get 50 authors with 50 different answers on what you should do. So you need to remember that some of the most famous authors of all time are authors who broke the rules, authors who did their own thing. So you need to stay true to your craft. So a good example of this is people always talk about the show don't tell rule. So you'll set a piece of your writing out to critique, and they'll say you need to show don't tell, and then you have to figure out what that means. But let's look at the book Les Mis. That book is full of tell. He describes more. There's more description than any other book. Yet it's one of the greatest works in history. He spends pages and pages just describing the Parisian sewer system. So if he had taken the advice of the show and tell group, Les Mis would be a completely different book. So write what works for you and what works for your story. Writing is an art. Now, the marketing is you need to find it's a whole different story. You've got to find an audience. You need to write the things people want to read if you want to sell your book. But if you're not true to yourself on the story that you are wanting to tell, it's never going to be good. Even if you're really focused on doing exactly what the market is calling for, if it doesn't come from you, it's not going to be your best work. So take that critique, use it, but then tell your story. The important aspects of your book is, does it tell a story? Does it elicit emotions? Does it make sense? Are there major plot holes? And is it edited well so that editing, kind of one of the rules I use is there anything in the book that pulls you out of the story? And that could be irrelevant details. It could be bad editing. It could be weird descriptions. Those are the things that you're looking for. Does it pull you out of the story, or can you, once you start reading, do you just stay in the story because it flows? That's what you need to ask yourself. If you are not confident with your plot writing skills, with your development, get a developmental editor that will help you do that. A lot of writing coaches tell you have to write an outline. You have to plot out your whole outline beforehand. You need to plot out your character arcs. You need to plot out your hero's journey and stuff. No, you don't. You need to do what works for you. If that works for you, planning everything in advance, then do that. But for me, that doesn't work for me, because the way a story works in my brain is it writes itself. As I start writing, the story comes to me. The characters actually speak to me. And tell me in the comments whether you have experienced this or not, but I've had times where what I planned, what Marcus planned, didn't happen because the characters dictated that something else needed to happen in the story. And that sounds unbelievable, but it happens. I've had characters, I was planning a full story arc for them, and the character told me, no, I'm supposed to die in this story, and you need to kill me off. And I said, no, I don't want to kill you off. And the character said, no, that is what happened. That's the story. That is what happens to me is I die. It doesn't matter how much you love me, you need to kill me off. And that feeling is so real for me that I have to do it, because that's the story that I have to tell. So write your story and choose the tool that works the best for you. If you're most familiar with Microsoft Word, then use Microsoft Word. If you're most familiar with Google Docs, use that. Don't let someone tell you have to buy an expensive program that has a steep learning curve in order to write. Start out free, and then if that doesn't work for you, you can explore the paid programs. All right, so that's just my thoughts on writing. We'll get into more. I'll show more of those as we go. But the first step in self-publishing is writing your book and choosing the tools you're going to use to write it. Whether you write on a desktop, a phone, a tablet, whatever you use to write, choose the tool that you're most familiar with and start writing. The only way you get to the end of a book is if you start it. All right. Remember to subscribe, click the notification bell, and next time we are going to talk about what do you do next after you have your draft done. We've talked a little bit about editing right now. We'll go into that a little bit more, and we'll start talking about different programs to use next. So stay tuned.